Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about all the book series I will not be finishing. So, there's actually a lot. Let me actually just count them. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my laptop because some of them I've read so long ago that I have no idea what they're about. So I'll be looking them up to tell you the synopsis, which I'm just gonna give a brief overview and a little bit of my thoughts because I have 72 series to talk about. Basically, a DNF series means I have finished the first book, otherwise it won't be on here. Like if I've DNF'd the actual first book, I don't count it, but if I've actually finished the first book, at least one of the books, then it's a DNF'd series. I'm gonna talk about them in the order of when I read them, basically starting from when I first started my Goodreads account. So starting from 2011 on. Most of them I've unhauled, so there will be pictures up here. So sometimes I won't say the author's name, but you'll find them here. Okay, so starting off from 2011, I started 4 series in 2011 that I decided not to continue with. Some of them I'm not sure. Well, with most of them actually, I decided to DNF them later on, but I don't know when I decided that, except for the ones I decided on this year. Years I'm talking about is the years of when I started the book or finished the first book. Anyway, Marked. Is it called Marked? No, it's The House of Night, I think. The House of Night series by PC Cast. This I've actually read the first 4. I think I bought them in like box set, and I basically hated every single one. I truly think that they were onto something a little bit, because if they'd published them like 10 years later, or like if they had published them in the last 3-4 years and it was like an adult book, it would 100% be considered a White Shoes romance, because she had like 3 different love interests in this book. I didn't really enjoy these books. I felt like there were way better vampire stories out there, mainly Vampire Academy. So this wanted to be Vampire Academy and did not succeed. So yeah, I decided to DNF it after the 4th book. Impulse by Ellen Hopkins. This one I enjoyed at the time. Yeah, this deals with suicide and like in a mental hospital. It's told in verse, so you basically really fly through these books. There was another book published, but I just decided that I didn't care enough to continue. Gone by Michael Grant. So I actually had every intention to finish this series. I actually bought all of them. So I read the first 2, Gone and Hunger. I think there's a video of mine somewhere of me actually unhauling this series. I read the first one in 2011 and the second one in 2013. So it also took me a while to get to the second book. And then I think by the time, I think I unhauled them, I guess in 2016 or something. By the time we hit that year, I figured I didn't care anymore. Even though I did really enjoy Gone. Let me actually see what I gave it. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars. I actually gave Hunger 4 stars. So I did enjoy it. This is like a post-apocalyptic story. And I did think it was very clever at the time. But since it took me so long to read, and by that point, I'd have to reread the first 2, and I didn't care enough. And the last book series that I DNF'd from 2011 was The Dark Divine. This was a werewolf story that I did not enjoy at all. Like, I was not really a fan. So I think I decided I'd just read the first one and be done with it. Let me actually... Oh, I gave it 4 stars. I was very generous because first of all, I remember nothing about this book, but what I do remember, I did not really like. Okay, then I have 5 books that I read in 2012. The first one is Abandoned by Meg Cabot. This was a Hades and Persephone retelling. I borrowed it from the library, which was one of the few young adult English books that I could get at my library. I remember not really enjoying it. I don't remember anything about it, but it was pretty forgettable in my opinion. And I think they only had the first one, and if I wanted the other 2, I'd had to buy them, and I just didn't care enough. I think if the other ones were available at my library, I would have finished the series, but since it wasn't, I decided that I was fine never finishing this series. Fairy Tale Retellings by Percy Jackson Pierce. Sorry, I was gonna say Percy Jackson, whoa. I read the first two books, Sisters Red and Sweetly, and I did enjoy it. I preferred the first one over the second one. These are basically fairy tale retellings. And I bought the first two, and then I think the other ones weren't out yet. And then apparently there's two more books in the series, and I didn't really care enough to continue, so I didn't. The Maze Runner series. I read the first one, and then when the second movie came out, I wanted to read the second book. And once again, I just really couldn't get into that book. I did enjoy The Maze Runner. Felt like The Maze Runner, like people loved the first book, but I didn't really hear that amazing things about the rest of the series. So I decided to leave well enough alone, even though I already owned the second book. Okay, so this is confusing for me because The Duff is on here, and I honestly thought, okay, so let me actually see. I don't know what is wrong with my Goodreads, but every time, does any of your Goodreads do this? Because every time I click on a book, it shows me the book in a different language, and I have to manually select the edition I want, which is the English version, or it gives me the audiobook as the first option, which I'm just confused about. Anyway, The Duff is part of the Hamilton High series that also include Shutout and A Midsummer's Nightmare, which is funny because I actually owned both of them, but I decided to unhaul them. I have really no interest in this series anymore, like in reading the rest of these books. I did really enjoy The Duff. I was considering rereading it, but this is just like a young adult series written in the early 2000s, so I have no real interest in continuing on. Actually, it wasn't early 2000. The Duff was written in 2010, which actually, yeah, so I read it 2 years after it came out. Okay, next is the Iron Face series by Julie Kagawa. I read The Iron King and The Iron Daughter, and actually when I read them, I didn't really enjoy them. So I don't even know why I read The Iron Daughter. I felt like the love interest was not interesting at all. It's a Fae series that I didn't really enjoy, so I decided to DNF it. The Delirium series, I really enjoyed Delirium, but I feel like, once again, people seem to love the first one, and I didn't really hear great things about the second and third book, so I felt like just leave well enough alone once again. If I Stay, this one I felt like was fine as a standalone. I don't know why this is more than a standalone, because it felt like the story was wrapped up. Yeah, the second book takes place 3 years after the first one, and like I said, to me it was not necessary at all. I don't know why she felt it was necessary to write this book. Okay, Wild Cards by Jennifer or Simone Alcaraz. She used to be one of my favorite authors around the time, like around 2011, 12, 13. Oh, by the way, Delirium and If I Stay I read in 2013, and the next books are all from 2013 as well. All the other books by her were published before I really started getting into her books. This was the first book that she published when I was already a fan of hers. And yeah, I see here 2 years later she published the second book, and I felt like Wild Cards was a fine book, but I didn't really love it as much as I loved the other books, like her Perfect Chemistry trilogy and Leaving Paradise duology. So to me it was just fine, and I have not read anything else by Simone Alcaraz. I don't know if she published anything more. A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray. Libba Bray, I've discovered, is not one of my favorite authors. I don't think I'll ever read anything by her. I've read 2 of her books, and this one being one of them, and it's just, I didn't really love it. I feel like I can't connect to her characters, especially with this one. This one was very hyped back in 2012, 2013, and I just really didn't get it. It was fine for me to let that one go. The Devouring by Simon Holt. This I don't know anything about. I believe this is like a horror novel, and it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I cannot tell you anything about this book. Nevermore. This is a like an Edgar Allan Poe retelling. I gave it 1 star. I hated it, but I did finish it for some reason. And as you can see by the cover, this is about a goth guy, like a love story between a goth guy and like a popular cheerleader. It was fine. Like I didn't really like it. Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. I know the second book came out. I believe I owned it at some point. I felt like this was a fine standalone. It didn't need a sequel. So yeah, that's the reason why I never continued on. Pushing the Limits. I really loved the first book, and I had every intention of continuing on. In fact, I owned all 4 of them for a very long time, and it was always my intention to continue. But a couple of years ago, I decided, you know what, let me just unhaul them, because they are young adult contemporary novels. And I'm not saying that I'll never enjoy a young adult contemporary novel anymore, but I feel like these types of stories, I prefer to read adult romances for them. So, and since they have been on my shelves for years and years and years, I read Pushing the Limits in 2012 or 2013, which is 10 years ago, and I never continued on. I felt like I'm never gonna read these books ever again, so it's fine. The Lux series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, I read Obsidian 2012 and Onyx in 2013. I actually decided this year to DNF this series. I don't care. And I feel like I'm not gonna enjoy these books now. I should have just read them back in 2012, 2013, 2014. I think I would have really, really loved them if I'd read them back then, but I didn't. And now we're here, and I don't think I'll really enjoy them if I read them now. So I figured, let's just unhaul them, or let's just DNF them. I still have them. So if you guys want me, by the way, all these DNF series, most of them I'll never get back to unless you guys want me to really continue on for like a vlog or something, then I will. But if it's up to me, I won't. Now for the books I read in 2014, another Jennifer L. Armentrout, Frigid. Yeah, there's only 2 books in the series. I guess I could continue on, but I don't care. Frigid I liked. I gave it 4 stars. It was one of my first adult romances, but I feel like there's just better ones out there. The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. This is a blast from the past. I read this one in 2014 as well. This was very, very popular back when. This is a dystopian book with aliens. I really don't remember anything about it, but I thought The Fifth Wave was fine. I think I gave it 4 stars. I mean, I did enjoy it for what it was, but it was not my favorite. I didn't love it as much as other people seem to. So I figured, let's just let that one go. I don't need to continue on. The Losing It series. I read Losing It and Faking It, actually. I read those in 2014. Yeah, so this was a trilogy, so I guess I could just read the other one, but I just didn't care. I don't really remember a whole lot about these books. The first one is, I think, a student-teacher book, and they were fine, but yeah, really no interest. The Darkest Minds, which for me, kind of the same reasons as with The Fifth Wave. Everybody and their mother seemed to love The Darkest Minds, and I really could not get into it. I didn't like anything about this book. I gave it 2 stars, and everybody seemed to love it, and I was like, you know what? I did actually finish it because I was like, I finished the first book because I was like, since everybody loves this, there has to be something that I'll love about it, and there really wasn't. So I did finish the first book, but I decided to DNF the series. The Last Survivors, and the first one being Life as We Knew It. The premise was very interesting because this, I believe, is a story of the moon getting so big that it has very big consequences for the earth, like flooding, things like that. And it's basically this family trying to survive, them, like a very realistic view of what you have to do to actually survive. I liked it. It was not really my favorite. And I was debating because I bought the other books in the series for very cheap on ebook. So there was like an intention to continue on. And then since I never really did, I decided to just DNF the series. The Coincidence series, first one being The Coincidence of Callie and Caden. I did really love those 2 books. And once again, I had every intention of continuing on. And then we have, like, this is basically a series following a lot of different couples. I spent years convincing myself I was going to continue on. And then at one point, I realized that I was never going to do that. So I never did. The Edge of Never. I really love The Edge of Never. A part of me wanted to continue on, but then I heard not the best things about the second book. And I felt like their HEA was done. I don't really love following books from the same couple because I feel like it's just extra drama. And I feel like that's the case with this book. These characters had gone through a lot, and I knew that if she continued on that they were gonna keep going through a lot, and I felt like I didn't really want to read that. Easy, I don't know what this series is called. Let me actually check. The Contours of the Heart. So I did really enjoy Easy. I gave it 5 stars, but to me it was a fine solid standalone. And I see there's like four books out. I don't know why. To me, it was fine as a standalone, and it didn't really need any more books, in my opinion. The Alabama Summers series by Jay Daniels. I read Where I Belong, and I really did not like it. I gave it 3 stars. I don't know why. It should have been a 2 or a 1. I didn't really love it at all. Whoa! There's like 6 books in the series and 1 yet to come. I don't know why. Yeah, I believe this is a series following like different couples. I didn't like Where I Belong. I know Jay Daniels has some very popular series, so maybe I'll try one of hers in the future. And maybe if I love those, I'll get back to it. Those are a lot of maybes. I don't have any solid plans of actually reading her books or continue on with the series. The Witches of Glass Castle. I read this one because this one YouTuber, Ben I think, was raving about this book. So I read it. It was fine. I gave it 4 stars. And there's another one in the series, but I was like, it's fine. Like, I got what I wanted out of the first book, and I'm done now. Moving on to 2015, I have 6 series to talk about that I started in 2015. First one is The Wicked and the Divine. This is a graphic novel or like a comic series that is really beautiful, but I don't think this is a very unpopular opinion. I didn't really like this one, and I don't think a lot of people did. I finished it because it's a comic, so it wasn't a slog, but I didn't like it, and I will never finish this series. Slammed by Colleen Hoover. This I didn't really love. I gave it 4 stars. And once again, I don't understand why this is a series. Yeah, and one of them is a story from his perspective. Yeah, I don't care. I don't like those books. The Red Queens series. I read the first one. It was fine. It was not really my favorite. So I read the first one. It was fun, but I didn't really need to continue on. Gotham Academy, which I really did love the first 2, but they decided to stop. And then I think the 3rd volume is really hard for me to buy. I think. Let me actually check if that's true. Yeah, so I could read it on ebook, but I don't like reading mangas or graphic novels or comics as an ebook. Oh, I guess I could buy it. I guess I could finish it. But I think I was just heartbroken that they stopped. I don't know, maybe I'll continue on with this one. The Simon Snow series. I did like Carry On, but not enough to continue on. It's actually not like, I didn't love it as much as other people did. It was fine. I way prefer reading other fantasy novels than this one. And the last series that I started in 2015 that I didn't continue is After. So once again, I had every intention of actually finishing it. I owned all the books. And maybe I still own them. I don't know. Either I still own them or I recently unhauled the After series. Nothing really in me was compelling me to actually pick it up because I know once I pick it up, I get so sucked in by the drama and want to continue on. But these books are very big. And once again, following one couple, and it's just drama on top of drama on top of drama on top of drama. And it's like a lot of other guy drama, other girl drama, basically the kind of drama that I don't really love anymore. I finally bit the bullet last year and was like, let's just stop. Now for all the books, all the series I started in 2016, I have 9 to talk about. First one is Ink and Bone. This book I hated. I hated it so much, but I did finish it for some reason. I am better at DNFing books that I'm not enjoying now than I used to. So I used to force myself to finish. Ink and Bone I gave 1 star, and I had no interest in continuing on, obviously. But there's like 5 books in this series. Howl's Moving Castle. A lot of people really love this book. I am not one of them, unfortunately. I never watched the movie. Maybe if I did, I would have loved this one way more. I did finish it. I didn't really like it, so I'll not be continuing on with the series. The Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. Victoria Schwab I really like. This one, however, I didn't. I didn't really connect to the characters in The Savage Song. I do own the 2nd book, so maybe one day in the future I'll finish it, but for now, I have no real interest in continuing on. The Miss Marvel comic series. I liked the first one, and then nothing in me was really compelling me to continue on. So finally I was like, you know what, since you have not actually continued on with the series for years, it's obviously a DNF series. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I bought the whole trilogy. I don't know if I think there's more books out now. I liked the first one. I was not really in love with it as much as other people seem to. And I don't know why I bought all three, but I did. And that is, I think it took me a while to actually DNF the series because I owned all three of them already. Like, I don't think I would have bought the second and third one after I read the first one, but since I already owned them, I kind of deluded myself into thinking that I was actually going to finish it, but I never did. Hi, so I'm editing and I realized that there are a couple of books that I forgot to talk about. So these two are from 2016. The Addicted/Calloway Sisters series. I cannot believe I forgot to talk about this one. So I read Addicted to You and I hated this book so much. I hated these characters. I could not stand them. And I know this is a very beloved series. I know Krista and Becca Ritchie are very beloved authors. There was a time where I thought, okay, you know what? I don't like Lillian Lowe's story, but I've heard many great things from the other couples. But then there's just a lot about this series that is not compelling to me. Mainly a lot of rich people plus a reality TV show. And like I said, I read it in 2016, hated it. Eventually I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just take my loss and accept that this is probably not my series. I guess out of all of these, I would be open to reading maybe the Calloway Sisters, but not out of my own accord. Next is Replica by Lauren Oliver. I read the first one. I thought it was very interesting because you follow two different girls and the formatting of this book was really interesting. But I felt like it was fine as a standalone. I actually bought the second book, never read it. The Girl in 6E, I liked it, even though I gave it 3 stars. But I didn't like it enough to continue on with the series. I feel like this is a solid standalone and it didn't need to be a series in my opinion. And then the last series I started in 2016 is a series of unfortunate events. I read the first 6. A lot of people obviously probably know what this series is about, but I felt like it was so repetitive. Like the same thing kept happening over and over and over and over again. So after 6 books, I was kind of done. I think I started this series because I wanted to watch the TV show and I felt like the first 6 kind of gave me a gist as to what I could expect. So in 2017, I have 8 series that I started. I'm not continuing on. The first one is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I actually got this in a fairy loot. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know why, because I remember back then I didn't love it as much as other people seem to. Maybe I should look up a wrap-up where I talked about this book. Yeah, I guess at the beginning I did think I was going to continue on, but as time went on, I was like, nothing was compelling me to pick up the sequel, so I just never did. The Flame in the Mist. Oh, this one I hated, but I did finish it, but I hated this book so much. So obviously I wasn't gonna continue on, even though it's only a duology. One of Us is Lying. Okay, so there's apparently 3 books out. I didn't like One of Us is Lying. I gave it 2 stars. I didn't like really anything about it. So I was never gonna finish this series. Warcross by Marie Lu. The first book was fine. I did like it enough to finish the first book, but it was pretty forgettable in my opinion. So when the second book came out, I couldn't be bothered. Dear Martin. I liked Dear Martin, but I felt like it was too short for what it was trying to say. It should have been longer. So when the second book came out and it was around the same length as the first book, I decided not to continue on. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I read the first book. I actually bought the second book. I don't know why, because the first book I didn't love as much as other people seem to. So because I bought the second book, once again, I convinced myself that I should finish or should continue on, but I never did. So eventually I just decided to unhaul both of them. And I don't know how many books are in this series. Yeah, 3. I don't care. Roar by Cora Carmack, which I don't know why this is on here. A part of me kind of wants to continue on. This is a fantasy romance that I really did enjoy. But I think it took her a while to release. Yeah, it took 3 years for her to continue on with the series. And I believe it's still not finished. Yeah, it's still not finished. So maybe that is also a reason for me that I was like, you know what? There's plenty of good fantasy romances out there. I don't need to continue on. And then the Wayward Children series, I decided this year that I was not going to continue on because it takes me years to actually continue, because Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones I read in 2017. Then I read Beneath the Sugar Sky in 2021, and then In an Absent Dream in 2023. I know a lot of people really love this series, but for me, it's not really hooking me. Even though some of them I did give 5 stars, but at the end of the day, I just don't care enough to continue. And especially the even numbers, I don't care too much about, because Down Among the Sticks and Bones and In an Absent Dreams, I definitely enjoyed less than Every Heart a Doorway and Beneath the Sugar Sky. 2018, I have 4 series that I started and have not continued on with. The first one is Stalking Jack the Ripper. I know this is controversial. I didn't like this book. I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. Even though I love historical fiction and especially historical romances. And this should be everything I love, but I didn't. So, and then there was actually a rant review from Riley Marie about the 3rd book, I think. It was first of all, it was hilarious. And she spoiled a lot in there, which she warned us, but I was like, you know what, spoil it, it's fine. And that just put the nail in the coffin for the series for me, where I was convinced that I don't need to be continuing on. The Girl of Paper and Fire. This book I hated so much, even though it should be a lot of things I really love. It sounded so good to me, but I didn't like it. I felt the world building was so bad, and I need that in a fantasy book for me to love it. And I didn't feel like it was a good book at all, which is sad because it was a sapphic romance. And like I said, the premise sounded very good, and the main character was so uninteresting to me that I felt like, you know what, no, I didn't like it, and I will never ever finish the series. The Gamble Brothers by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Tempting the Best Man, I read. This was fine. It was like a fine romance. I gave it 3 stars. I was debating on continuing on. There was a time where I thought I was gonna continue, but eventually I decided, who am I kidding? I'm not gonna continue on. Another Colleen Hoover. I'm bashing Colleen Hoover in this video. Apparently, maybe someday. I hated with a passion. I fucking hated that book. There's cheating, rampant cheating in this book, which I was not warned about at all. I hated both these characters, even though there was a deaf character in here that I really like. I was very interested in him and reading about that, but I hated it. I hated it so much. And I was debating on reading Maybe Not, because it did involve a character that I really liked in Maybe Someday, but eventually I was like, you know what, I hate this book so much, I don't even want to see these characters in other books, even though I will probably like those characters more. So yeah, Maybe Someday was a flop, in my opinion. 2019 was a very bad reading year for me. I think I read 9 books that year. Let me actually check. 10 books, whoa. Applause for me for 2019, Aya. So I didn't actually start a series that year. So moving on to 2020, there were 7 series that I started that I did not continue on with. The first book is Seafire. I like this book. This was fine, but I didn't like it enough to continue. With most of these books, after I finish it, there is a point where I think, you know what, maybe I'll finish it. And then like a couple months later, I look back at that book, I'm like, I don't remember a lot of things about you, so let's just not. The Sinners of Saints by L.J. Shen. I read Vicious. I did like it, but it was not my favorite romance I read. There was a point where I figured that I was gonna continue on, but I kept not doing it. So eventually I just reached the conclusion that I was probably never gonna finish this series. Next is a very controversial one, From Blood and Ash. I actually bought the second book, even though the first book was not really my favorite, but I was convincing myself that there probably was going to be better world building, because From Blood and Ash did not have any world building at all, which is one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Like, for a book this thick, then at least the world building needs to be on point, but it wasn't. Like, this book needed to either have better world building or be way shorter. Like, this book could have been 200 pages. Like, those 300 extra pages did not add anything for my understanding of this world. So yeah, no. So I bought the second book. I started it, like I think I read the first 100 pages and then I was like, I don't care. So I stopped. And you cannot, like, I don't care what you do, you cannot convince me to finish that series. The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I like this book. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't love it as much as other people seem to. And then once again, the second book follows the same couple, and I felt like they finally got their HEA. Why mess with that? Because I could see where this was going. Like, this is a city girl going to a small town. Obviously, there's parts of that she's not gonna love, which is gonna put a strain on the relationship. I had no interest in reading about that. I have heard great things about the third book, and it is on my TBR, but I don't know if I'll ever read that one. Reborn Yesterday. I didn't really love this book. But I was interested in the second one because it involves a character that I liked. So I guess I put it on my list because I wanted to continue on with it. And then once again, I just, even though these covers are beautiful, especially the second and third covers, I just decided I didn't really care because I felt like the whole vampire lore in this series was not very well fleshed out. The Only for a Night, or the Lick series by Naima Simone, Only for a Night, I guess I liked it's a novella series. I gave it 2 stars. So that's probably the reason why I didn't continue on. And the Thelanian Dynasty, I decided to DNF this year. The first book is Theirs for the Night, which is a novella. I did really like it. And for me, this book series is just too long. Like, there's, I believe you follow 2 books with like the main triangle, I guess. And then you follow like this whole kingdom and like the sister of one of the main characters. I was like, I didn't care. I didn't care at all. I liked Theirs for the Night because it was a fun, smutty night, but I didn't care about this made up kingdom and this throuple. I was like, it's fine. Moving on with the series I started in 2021, which I have 7. A Discovery of Witches. I really liked the first book. And then I started the second book and I could not get into it. It was just a slog. I didn't like that they went back to the past. I didn't really like anything about that book. So I DNF'd that book. And then a part of me decided, you know, maybe I'll come back to it, but I never did. And I don't think I'll ever will. The Song of the Lioness. First book is Alana, the First Adventure. A lot of people love this book and I don't know why, because I didn't really enjoy it at all. And that is also why I didn't DNF it, because I figured, you know, since a lot of people love this book, I must love it too. But I finished it and I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. I did not like the first book. Well, I gave it 3 stars, so there were some things about it I liked, which is, I guess, why I was kind of convincing myself I was going to continue. But I've read way better Hades and Persephone's retellings. And I also don't like the fact that this is one book from the heroine's perspective and one book from the hero's perspective. I don't like that. Just give me both their perspectives in one book. The Well Met series by Jen DeLuca. I DNF'd it this year because I read the Well Met. I did love it. And then I heard horrible things about the second book. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just wait until her sister's book is published because I was interested in her love story. And then once it was published, I was like, I don't care. So yeah, that's why I DNF'd this series. Elusive. This one I read because I wanted to read some superhero, supervillain stories. I gave it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. But the second book is very hard to come by. And then I figured, you know what? I don't care enough to search this book out. So let's just leave Well Enough alone. The Some Girls Bite series. I read the first one. It was fine. It was not my favorite. But I figured, you know, with these paranormal / urban fantasy stories that span a lot of books, usually the first book is never really the best. Like you really start getting into it like in the 3rd or 4th book. But since this is not really a very popular series on BookTube, like I haven't read anybody talk about it, I figured it's probably not that good. How to Hang a Witch by Adriana Mather. I did really love the first book and it was fine as a standalone. I don't know why there's a second book. And the second book doesn't even deal with the same type of topic with ghosts and like a haunted town. I believe this is like a haunted boat, I think. Something with the Titanic. I don't know. I just figured I don't care. Like, I love the first book. It was fine for what it was, and it didn't need a sequel, in my opinion. And then the last books I'm going to talk about are series I started in 2022, because good for me, there aren't any series I started in 2023 that I've decided to DNF. So, and in 2022, wow, 2022, there were 3 series I started that I did not finish. First series is The Order of the Unseen, the first book being Scream for Us. Okay, so I gave it 4 stars, but I don't really remember really loving it. I believe this is very like gruesome for no reason. So it was fine. The Devouring Grey. I like this book, but once I finished it, I was like, you know what? Do you want to continue on? And everything in me was screaming, no, I don't want to continue on. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. People say, I mean, so it says for fans of Stranger Things, Riverdale, The Raven Cycle, and also, I guess, Vampire Diaries. I get why people compare it to those things, but to me, it was not as good as those things. So maybe Riverdale, because Riverdale is not that good. Okay, last is the Nick and Holly series. First one being Dipped in Holly. I did like that one, but it's like a series of novellas following the same couple, and I think I bought them all, and then I started reading the second book. I was like, this is fine. I don't really need to read it. So I DNF'd it. So yes, those were the 72 series that I have no interest in finishing. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, and if you either feel the same way as me or if you completely disagree. That is fine. Please be respectful in the comments. I hope you can respect my opinion, because I will definitely be respecting yours. And if for some reason you think I really, really need to read one of these books or finish this one of these series, definitely let me know. I don't know if you can convince me. With some of them, you can definitely convince me. Some of them, you definitely cannot. But you can try in the comments if you want. And I'm really interested to hear about the series, especially popular series, that you decided you will not be finishing. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.